7 years. That is how long I visited their graves every Saturday without fail. Rain or shine, blizzard or heat wave, nothing kept me from that cemetery. My wife Grace and my daughter Lily died in a plane crash on October 12, 2018. And since then, my life became a ritual of grief measured in weekly visits and wilted flowers. My name is Ethan Cole. I am 49 years old, though people say I look closer to 60 now. Grief ages you in ways that time alone never could. I used to be the town veterinarian here in Fairview, Ohio, the guy everyone trusted with their beloved pets. These days, I am just the man who talks to headstones every Saturday morning. Grace was my everything. We met in college when she was studying music education and I was neck-deep in veterinary science textbooks. She had this laugh that could fill an entire room and hands that could make any piano sing. She taught music at Fairview Elementary for 15 years. Kids would run up to her at the grocery store excited to show her they had learned a new song. She was 42 when the plane went down. Lily was our only child, our miracle baby. After 3 miscarriages, 23 years old, and just starting nursing school, she had her mother's musical talent, but chose stethoscopes over sheet music. Dad, she would say, you heal animals. I will heal people, and Mom heals souls with her music. We have got all the bases covered. She had this way of making everything sound like it was going to be okay. Last week changed everything. Last week, my dead daughter called me. I was kneeling at her grave, like always, telling her about the new coffee shop that opened downtown when my phone rang. The screen showed a name that stopped my heart. Lily Sell. I have kept paying her phone bill for 7 years because I could not let go of that last connection to her. Sometimes I call it just to hear her voicemail greeting. When I answered that call, there was silence at first, then breathing. Then a voice I knew better than my own heartbeat spoke 4 words that shattered my world. Daddy, please stop visiting. I thought grief had finally broken my mind. I thought 7 years of talking to cold granite had pushed me over the edge into madness. But then she said something that made my blood run cold. They are watching you at the cemetery. The call ended before I could respond. When I tried calling back, the number was disconnected. I spent that entire night convincing myself it was a cruel prank, some sick person who knew about my routine, who could somehow mimic my daughter's voice. Then the photo arrived 3 days later, my daughter clearly alive holding up that morning's Columbus Star newspaper. The date was clearly visible. November 10th, 2025. Not a photo from 7 years ago, not some clever digital manipulation. My daughter, 7 years older, thinner with shorter hair, but unmistakably Lily. The message beneath the photo said, "The crash was not an accident. Blackwater Aviation made it disappear. If you want the truth about what really happened to Flight 447, stop visiting the cemetery. Stop your Saturday routine. Mom is alive too. We have been prisoners for 7 years. Trust no one, especially not the people who have been watching you grieve. Every Saturday for 7 years I brought sunflowers to Grace's grave and left letters at Lily's headstone. Every Saturday for years I thought I was mourning my dead family. But last week my daughter's ghost called me from beyond the grave, except she was not calling from beyond anything. She was calling from somewhere very much in this world, very much alive and very much in danger. This is the story of how my wife and daughter died in a plane crash. Except they did not die at all. This is the story of what really happened to Flight 447, and why 7 innocent people became 4 actual casualties and 4 living ghosts. This is the story of how a small-town veterinarian discovered that sometimes the dead do not rest in peace because they are not dead at all. They are just hidden. My life had become a map of grief with only 3 destinations: Homework and Maplewood Cemetery. Every Saturday morning at 8:00 a.m., sharp, I would arrive at the cemetery gates with 2 bouquets of sunflowers and a heart full of words I never got to say. The routine had become so predictable that Jack the groundskeeper would have the water cans filled and waiting by their graves. Mourning Ethan. Jack would nod his weathered face, showing the kind of understanding that only comes from years of watching people mourn. They are looking peaceful today. He always said that, and I always appreciated the lie. Grace's headstone was elegant gray marble with musical notes etched along the border. Beloved wife, mother, and teacher carved beneath her name. I would sit on the small bench I donated to the cemetery, positioned perfectly between her grave and Lily's, and tell her about my week, about how Mrs. Lee's diabetes was acting up again, about how the church choir sounded flat without her there to correct them, about how I still could not bring myself to donate her piano. Lily's headstone was simpler, white granite with a small dove carved at the top. Treasured daughter, forever young, beneath her name and dates. For her, I brought letters, actual handwritten letters on the stationery she had given me for Father's Day years ago, the ones with silly cartoon dogs along the border. I had to write about everything and nothing, about the news she was missing, the TV shows she would never see, and the ways the world kept spinning without her in it. Our house on Cedar Street had become a museum to October 11th, 2018, the last normal day of my life. Grace's coffee cup still sat on the kitchen counter, though I had long since washed it and placed it back exactly where she had left it. Her reading glasses rested on top of a half-finished crossword puzzle on the living room end table. Lily's nursing textbooks were stacked on the dining room table, colorful tabs marking important chapters she would never get to study. Ethan. This is not healthy, my brother Mark would say during his weekly check-ins. He would drive over from Lake City every Wednesday, bringing groceries I did not ask for and concern I did not want. You are living in a shrine. It is my house. I would tell him the same response every week. When is the last time you had someone over? When is the last time you did anything besides work and visit the cemetery? The truth was, I could not remember. The veterinary clinic had become my only connection to the living world, and even that was minimal. I had reduced my schedule to Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, just enough to keep my license active and my mind marginally occupied. My partner, Dr. Megan Fox, had essentially taken over the practice, treating me more like a part-time employee than the co-owner I technically still was. The Adams asked if you could look at their retriever Megan mentioned one afternoon. But I can handle it if you are not up for it. I was never up for it anymore. The Adams retriever was the same age as the one I had saved the day my family died, the emergency surgery that kept me from boarding that plane. The cosmic joke that saved my life while condemning me to wish it had not. The crash had made the national news for exactly 3 days. Small charter plane crashes in the Montana hills. 8 presumed dead. Then Hurricane Maxwell hit Texas and the world moved on to newer tragedies. The investigation concluded it was weather-related, a sudden storm combined with possible pilot error. Case closed, bodies recovered, families notified, insurance claims processed. Blackwater Aviation had sent a representative to the memorial service, a nervous man named Brian who kept adjusting his tie and repeating how deeply sorry the company was for our loss. They had offered the standard settlement, which I had signed without reading because what did money matter when everything valuable was gone? The company went bankrupt 2 months later. I had not thought about them since. The other families had gradually faded from my life. We had formed a brief grief support circle that met twice before dissolving into awkward silence and avoiding eye contact at the grocery store. The Trans lost their son Noah. The Lopez family lost their daughter Ava. Ryan West died alone, leaving behind only an ex-wife who seemed more relieved than grieved. 3 other passengers I had never met. Their families were just names on a memorial plaque. 7 years had turned me into a ghost haunting my own life, a character in a story that had ended in Chapter 3, but somehow kept turning pages. Fairview had watched me fade from Ethan the veterinarian, Ethan the husband, Ethan the father, into Ethan the widower. Ethan who visits the cemetery every Saturday. Ethan who never moved on. But now, sitting in my living room with a photograph of my living daughter on my phone and her voice still echoing in my ears, I realized I had not been haunting my life at all. I had been waiting for something I could not name, could not imagine, could not dare hope for. And now, the waiting was over. Saturday, November 8th, 2025 started like every other Saturday for the past 7 years. I arrived at Maplewood Cemetery at 8:00 a.m. with 2 bouquets of sunflowers from Mrs. Green's flower shop. The morning air was crisp autumn leaves crunching under my feet as I walked the familiar path to their graves. Plot 28A, row 9, where my entire world was supposedly buried. I was kneeling at Lily's headstone, telling her about the new coffee shop that had replaced her favorite bookstore when my phone rang. I almost ignored it. Saturday mornings were sacred time, uninterrupted time. But when I glanced at the screen, my heart stopped. Lily Sell. The phone nearly slipped from my trembling hands. I had kept paying her phone bill through the same family plan month after month, year after year. $58 every month to keep her number active, to keep that last piece of her alive. Mark called it unhealthy. The grief counselor I had seen exactly once called it complicated grief behavior. I called it the only thing that made sense. Hello? My voice cracked like a teenage boy's. Silence stretched for 3 seconds, maybe 4, then breathing. Then Daddy, please stop visiting the cemetery. The world tilted. That voice older now, rougher around the edges, but unmistakably hers. The way she stretched out Daddy with that slight upturn at the end, the exact inflection she had used since she was 4 years old. Who is this? I managed to choke out. This is not funny. Who the hell is this, Daddy? It is me. I know this is impossible. I know you think you are going crazy right now, but please, you have to stop coming here. They are watching you. Every Saturday they watch. Mom says we cannot let this continue anymore. Mom says... The line went dead. I called back immediately. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. I sat there in the cemetery for another hour, staring at my phone, waiting for it to ring again. Jack asked if I was all right when he passed by. I told him I was fine, just tired. How could I tell him I had just received a phone call from my dead daughter? That night I did not sleep. I pulled out old videos on my phone, listening to Lily's voice over and over, comparing it to those few seconds on the phone. It was her. Every rational part of my brain screamed that it was impossible, but my heart knew the truth. That was my daughter. Monday and Tuesday passed in a haze. I called in sick to the clinic, something I had never done before. I researched voice-mimicking technology, hired a private investigator who specialized in fraud cases, even considered checking myself into a psychiatric facility. Maybe Mark was right. Maybe 7 years of grief had finally broken something inside me that could not be fixed. Then Wednesday arrived, and with it a text message from a blocked number. The photo hit me like a physical blow. Lily sitting at what looked like a diner booth holding up the Columbus Star. November 10th, 2025. Today's date. Today's headline about the governor's education reform bill clearly visible. She was thinner, her cheekbones more pronounced, her blonde hair now dark brown and cut short. But it was her. The small scar on her chin from when she fell off her bike at age 7. The way her left eyebrow arched slightly higher than her right, the nervous habit of biting her lower lip. The message below the photo changed everything. The crash was not an accident. Blackwater Aviation made it disappear. If you want the truth, stop visiting the cemetery. Stop talking to Mark about this. Stop everything normal. They killed 7 people to hide what Mom discovered. We are the only survivors. Wait for instructions. Delete this message now. My hands shook as I zoomed in on every detail. She was wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt I did not recognize. There was a coffee cup on the table, steam still rising from it. Behind her, through the diner window, I could make out mountains. Not Ohio mountains, because Ohio does not have mountains. somewhere out west, somewhere they had been hidden for 7 years. I screenshotted the photo, emailed it to myself with the subject line veterinary conference schedule, then deleted the original message as instructed. If Lily was alive, if this was real, then someone had murdered 4 people and made it look like 8. Someone had stolen 7 years of our lives. Someone had watched me grieve at empty graves every Saturday for over half a decade. The anger that rose in my chest was unlike anything I had felt before. Not the numb rage at God I had felt after the crash. Not the helpless fury at the unfairness of loss. This was different. This was the kind of anger that demanded answers, that demanded justice, that demanded blood. If my wife and daughter were alive, someone was going to pay for every single Saturday I had spent talking to empty graves. I told Mark I needed to get away for a while. The lie came easier than I expected, maybe because it was wrapped in truth. "You were right," I said over the phone Thursday morning. 7 years of visiting the cemetery every Saturday is not healthy. I am taking a vacation, maybe drive down to Texas, see the ocean clear my head. Ethan. "That is wonderful," Mark said. I could hear the relief in his voice. "It is about time. Want some company? I could take a few days off. No, I need to do this alone. Need to figure out who I am without the grief." After hanging up, I drove to the library 3 towns over where no one knew me. Using their public computers, I started researching Blackwater Aviation. What I found made my stomach turn. The company had operated for 12 years, running small charter flights across the Midwest. 2 months after the crash, they had declared bankruptcy. But here is what did not make sense. All their assets, every plane, every hangar, every contract were immediately purchased by a company called Mountain Air Holdings. Mountain Air Holdings had no website, no public presence, just a P.O. box in Nevada and a registered agent who also represented 47 other shell companies. But I found one interesting detail in an aviation industry newsletter from November 2018. Mountain Air Holdings was owned by a subsidiary of Stillwater Industries, a waste management conglomerate with contracts across 16 states. Waste management. Grace had been complaining about illegal dumping near her school for months before she died, or before she supposedly died. I dug deeper. Robert Miles, CEO of Blackwater Aviation, had died in a single car accident 3 weeks after the crash. His blood alcohol level was 0.0. The road was dry and his brake lines were intact, but somehow his car had gone off a cliff at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. The investigating officer, Detective Karen Boyd, had retired 6 months later at age 44, citing personal reasons. Friday afternoon, I drove 2 hours to Columbus to meet with Mrs. Tran Noah's mother. We had exchanged exactly 3 sentences at the memorial service 7 years ago. I had found her number in an old grief support group email chain. We met at a busy mall food court, her choice. "Safer in crowds," she had said on the phone, which should have been my first warning. "Did anyone from Blackwater contact you after the crash?" I asked after we had made small talk about the weather. She stirred her tea slowly, not meeting my eyes. "Mr. Cole, why are you really here? I am trying to understand what happened." 7 years later, and things do not add up. She looked around the food court, checking faces, watching for anyone paying too much attention to us. 2 men came to our house 3 days after the crash before the memorial service. They said they were from Blackwater's insurance company. They offered us $4 million. $4 million. The standard settlement had been $600,000, but there were conditions. We could never speak publicly about the crash, never sue, never investigate, never question the official report. My husband had just been diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer. We needed the money for treatment. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo of a smiling man. He lived another 4 years because we could afford the experimental therapy. 4 years we would not have had. Mrs. Tran. What if I told you Noah might not have died in that crash? Her teacup rattled against the saucer. I would say that grief makes us believe impossible things. Noah called you the night before the flight. What did he say exactly? She was quiet for so long I thought she would not answer. Then she said, he said he had met a teacher at the airport, said she had discovered something big about illegal chemical dumping, said she had documents, photos, soil samples from her school, said she was scared because she had already reported it to the EPA, but nothing had happened. Grace taught at Fairview Elementary. There was construction nearby that summer, supposed to be building new houses, but the construction stopped suddenly in August. Mr. Cole, I need to go. She stood abruptly. Please do not contact me again and be careful. The men who visited us knew things, personal things, where my sister lived in California, what school my younger son attended. They never said it was a threat, but the message was clear. That evening, another text arrived. Dad. Mom says to tell you about the music box, the one you gave her for your 15th anniversary. She says you hid something in it after the crash, but you were too sad to remember. Check the music box. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Maplewood Park. The bench where Lily used to feed the ducks. Come alone. The music box. Silver with engraved roses hidden in our bedroom closet because I could not bear to look at it. When I lifted the felt lining, I found a flash drive I had no memory of placing there. But there was my handwriting on a tiny piece of paper. Everything Grace found. The drive contained dozens of documents, photos, chemical analysis reports. Blackwater Aviation had been using their hangars to store barrels of industrial waste. The chemicals were leaching into groundwater, contaminating wells across 3 counties. Grace had traced the paper trail, connected the companies, compiled enough evidence to destroy them all. The last file was a draft email to the EPA dated October 11, 2018, the day before the flight. The subject line read, Urgent evidence of criminal chemical dumping by Blackwater Aviation, lives at risk. She had never sent it. She had planned to deliver everything in person to the EPA office in Seattle. That was why she and Lily were on that flight. It was not a trip to see a cousin's baby. It was a mission to expose a crime, and someone had stopped them. Or tried to. Maplewood Park at 3:00 p.m. on Saturday felt like walking into another lifetime. The bench where Lily used to throw breadcrumbs to the ducks had not changed. Still the same weathered wood with donated by the Maplewood Rotary Club 2005 on a small plaque. I sat there trying to look casual while my heart threatened to pound out of my chest. I saw her before she saw me. She was walking along the pond's edge wearing a baseball cap pulled low and oversized sunglasses, but I knew that walk the slight favor of her left foot from when she tore her ACL playing soccer sophomore year, the way she swung her arms just a little too much when she was nervous. My daughter, my Lily, alive and walking toward me after 7 years of visiting her grave. She sat down beside me, leaving a careful foot of space between us. Do not react. Do not touch me. Do not look directly at me. Just feed the ducks like we used to. I pulled out the bag of bread I had brought, my hand shaking as I tore off pieces. Lily. Hi, Dad. Her voice broke on the words. I am so sorry. We wanted to contact you sooner, but they were watching. They are always watching. Your mother, please tell me she is really alive too. She is. She was hurt badly in the crash. Well, not the crash, the staged landing. Dad, I need to tell you everything quickly. We do not have much time. She pulled out her own bag of bread. And to anyone watching, we were just 2 strangers sharing a bench feeding ducks on a Saturday afternoon. Mom found evidence that Blackwater Aviation was getting paid millions to illegally store chemical waste in their hangars. The chemicals were leaching into groundwater, poisoning 3 counties. Kids at Mom's school were getting sick, unusual cancers, respiratory problems, neurological issues. She connected it all back to Blackwater. I found her files on the flash drive. There were 2 federal air marshals on our flight, Dad. We did not know it at the time. Mom started talking to Noah Tron about what she had discovered, showing him some documents she had printed. 20 minutes into the flight, the pilot announced mechanical problems. We were diverted to a private airstrip in Nebraska. My throat felt tight. Then what happened? Men in suits were waiting. They separated us immediately. Mom tried to fight back, told them she had already sent copies of everything to the EPA. That was when things got bad. The lead man, someone they called Mr. Black, said we had two choices: die in a plane crash or disappear forever. 8 people were on that plane. Noah Tran refused to cooperate. So did Ava Cruz and Ryan West. They were brave, Dad. Braver than us. They said no amount of threats would make them abandon their families. Her voice caught. We heard the gunshots from the hangar where they were holding us. 3 shots. 3 people who actually died that day. They flew their bodies to the Montana hills, staged the crash site. The other 5 of us became ghosts. 5 you, Mom, and who else? An older couple, the Browns. They are in Idaho now, and a businessman named Alan Kim. He is in Utah. We were all given new identities handlers to watch us and told our families would be killed if we ever made contact. Where have you been, Lily? 7 years, where Silver Lake, Montana population 4,000. Mom teaches piano as Laura Walsh. I work at a medical clinic as Amy Walsh. We have an apartment above a bakery. We have handlers who check on us twice a week, sometimes more federal marshals who are supposed to be protecting us but are really keeping us prisoner. Why contact me now? Lily pulled out her phone and showed me a campaign website. Robert Miles. Son Jason Miles is running for Senate. He is using his father's tragic death as part of his platform, talking about how his father built an honest business, how he died too young. Mom could not stand it anymore. She said if they are bold enough to run for office on lies, we are bold enough to fight back. The documents on the flash drive, are they enough? More than enough, but we need help getting them to someone who cannot be bought. There is a journalist, Logan Reed, who has been investigating chemical dumping in the Midwest for years. He is close to the truth, but missing the key pieces. You need to contact him. She stood up slowly, still feeding the ducks. Dad, there is something else. The handlers do not know we know this, but 3 months ago we found out they are planning to make us disappear permanently. The 6-year statute of limitations on the original crimes is almost up. Once Jason Miles is in office, once they are sure no one is looking anymore. We are all going to have accidents. We are running out of time then. Mom will call you tonight at 8:00 p.m. on the burner phone I am about to drop on the ground. When I stand up, wait 30 seconds, then pick it up. Dad, after tonight, you cannot visit the cemetery anymore. You have to act like you are moving on. Can you do that? To get you back? I can do anything. She turned slightly toward me, and for just a second I saw her eyes behind the sunglasses. My daughter's eyes filled with tears. The music at the funeral. Mom wants you to know she heard it. Pachelbel's Canon. She says she always hated that piece. Too predictable. She wants you to play something unexpected when this is over. She stood up, dropped a small black phone by the bench leg, and walked away. I counted to 30, picked up the phone, and continued feeding the ducks for another 10 minutes before leaving. As I walked back to my car, I noticed a black sedan pulling out of the parking lot behind me. They were still watching, but now I knew the truth. My family was alive, trapped but alive, and we were running out of time to save them. I contacted Logan Reed that same night after Grace called. Hearing her voice for the first time in 7 years almost broke me completely. She cried. I cried. And we spent precious minutes just saying each other's names over and over like a prayer we had thought would never be answered. Ethan, my love, we do not have long. She finally managed. The documents you found are just the beginning. I have recordings, photos, everything, but you have to be careful. These people have killed to keep this secret. Logan Reed was skeptical at first when I called him at his office Monday morning. An investigative journalist for the Chicago Tribune, he had spent 3 years tracking chemical dumping across the Midwest. But when I mentioned Blackwater Aviation and Robert Miles, his tone changed immediately. How do you know those names, he asked. I have been trying to connect them to the dumping sites for 2 years. because my wife and daughter supposedly died in their plane crash. Except they did not die. They have been held prisoner for 7 years because my wife found evidence of their crimes. We met at a truck stop halfway between our cities. I gave him everything from the flash drive plus the photos Lily had risked sending me. Within 2 weeks, Reed published the first in a series of explosive articles. The FBI raided Mountain Air Holdings offices in 4 states. 16 people were arrested, including 2 U.S. Marshals who had been taking bribes to imprison witnesses. Jason Miles withdrew from his Senate race the day before his arrest. He had known everything had actually managed the shell companies that hid the toxic waste profits. The investigation revealed a network of corruption that reached into the EPA itself, explaining why Grace's initial complaints had been ignored. But the sweetest moment came 3 weeks after the story broke. A black SUV pulled up to my house at 6:00 a.m. When the doorbell rang, I opened it to find 2 FBI agents, and behind them, stepping out of the vehicle, Grace and Lily. The reunion nearly killed me with joy. I held them both, feeling their heartbeats, smelling Grace's lavender shampoo, hearing Lily's laugh. Real. Alive. Home. They were placed in official witness protection, real protection this time, not imprisonment. The trial would take months, maybe years, and their testimony was crucial. But they were given supervised visits home. And eventually we were relocated together to a small town in Washington where we could start over with new identities. The hardest part was learning to live with what those 7 years had done to us. Grace's hand shook sometimes from nerve damage from the beating she had taken when she first resisted. Lily had panic attacks in small spaces, a remnant of the locked rooms in Silver Lake, Montana, and I had to learn that my family had not just been returned to me unchanged like packages delayed in shipping. We were different people now. Grace was harder, less trusting, but also fiercer in her love for us. Lily had missed 7 years of her 20s. 7 years of becoming who she was supposed to be. She went back to nursing school under her new name, graduated with honors, and now works in pediatric oncology. She says helping children fight for their lives gives her purpose after having her own life stolen. During the trial, we learned the full scope of the horror. The 4 passengers who had refused to cooperate had been murdered in cold blood. Their families told they died heroes, when really they died refusing to be victims. Noah, Tran, Ava Cruz, Ryan West, and another unnamed passenger became the names we carried with us, the people whose courage had made them casualties while our fear had kept us alive. I still visit Maplewood Cemetery sometimes when we are allowed supervised trips back to Fairview, Ohio. But now I place flowers on 4 different graves, the 4 people who actually died. Their headstone inscriptions are lies saying they died in a plane crash. But I know the truth. They died standing up to evil. Mark was there through everything, helping pack up the house, attending every day of the trial, never once saying I told you so about his concerns. Mrs. Tran testified with incredible courage, her husband having passed just months before the truth came out. She told me she was grateful he had lived to see justice begin, even if he did not see it completed. Mrs. Tran testified with incredible courage, her husband having passed just months before the truth came out. She told me she was grateful he had lived to see justice begin, even if he did not see it completed. The last time I saw Jack, the cemetery groundskeeper, he shook my hand with tears in his eyes. "I always thought you were talking to angels," he said. "Turns out the angels were trying to come home. It has been a year now since that phone call in the cemetery." Grace plays piano again, though her fingers do not move quite as smoothly as before. Lily is dating a fellow nurse who knows our story and loves her anyway. And me, I am practicing veterinary medicine again, healing animals while my daughter heals people and my wife heals hearts with her music. We lost 7 years, but we did not lose each other. We learned that love does not end at a gravestone. That truth can survive even the deepest burial. And that sometimes the dead come back, not as ghosts, but as warriors ready to fight for justice. Saturday has new meaning now, not a day for mourning at empty graves, but a day for family dinners where we are all actually present. Where grace means thanking God not for bringing them back from the dead, but for keeping them alive when evil men wanted them silenced forever. The company executives are serving life sentences. The toxic waste sites have been cleaned up, though the damage to some families can never be undone. But for us, for our little reformed family, we learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes refusing to let go is not weakness or denial. Sometimes it is prophecy. Sometimes it is the thread that leads you back to the impossible truth that your loved ones are still out there waiting for you to find them, waiting for justice, waiting to come home. And if you are watching this video and you have lost someone under mysterious circumstances, if something does not feel right about their death, do not give up. Do not stop asking questions, because sometimes the dead are not dead at all. They are just waiting for someone brave enough to listen when they call. If this story touched you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below about a time when you trusted your instincts against all logic. And subscribe to this channel for more stories about families who refused to give up on each other even when the whole world told them to let go. Because sometimes love is the only compass that points to the truth.